Yes, you're very welcome back to the show. What our next guest is part of the Today Show family,
yes,
really.
Course,
He's been hanging around here for a long time, but we finally got him into studio. Usually we send him off around the country, even jiving or even...
Yeah, he does everything. He's our roving reporter.
Yeah,
Colm Flynn. But tonight we're going to see a very different side to Colm Flynn in a brand new documentary. He's actually talking about his own family and he's tracking his family's journey to adopt a little boy called Banni from Belarus 15 years ago, and then the journey that he took back to Belarus this summer. Colm, thanks a million for coming in. It's great to have you in.
Great to have you physically in studio.
And thanks for all your great reports.
To be sitting here with you. Normally I'm on that screen and you're making an idiot of me.
Yeah, we're trying to find you on Skype. We're trying to locate you around the country.
I'm driving down the country somewhere.
Before we actually talk to you about this, about Banni, the little boy that your parents adopted for a little while and the story that goes with it, we're going to take a look at the documentary that you made that's going to be on RTÉ tonight.
We kept hitting this magic word a month. The lawyer, she kept trying to phone the orphanage to say, why are we right, are we ready to go ahead? And she was getting put off.
They must have given some indication as to why they were going to block it or stop it or why they were delaying it?
No, we had no indication whatsoever. Later on, the translator told me, unofficially, that the doctor had said, there has to be something wrong with that woman who wants to adopt a handicapped child.
Oh, goodness. There's
It's
your
very
mom
sad.
there.
Even watching it there, it's so hard to watch that clip, you know.
So tell us the story. How did the whole thing come about that Banni was with you in the beginning?
It was, you know, you have these exchange programs that have been happening for years where children that have been affected by the nuclear fallout from Chernobyl, and coincidentally this is the 30th anniversary of Chernobyl. I remember one day being at Mass and someone went up from the charity and they were talking about it and said, look, we need host families to take these children for just 1 week. And my mum turned to myself and my younger brother and sister and said, what do you think? But I was only 12 at the time and they were younger, and when you're 12 years of age, you're not really thinking of these big picture things. And we said, yeah, you know, it sounds good, whatever. And then after a couple of weeks, lo and behold, this little boy arrived at our house one day.
This little boy we see here, what a lovely... What age was he when he came to you?
He was, it's hard to believe, he was 6 or 7.
There, and he looks
6
like our kids.
He looked like 2 or 3,
Yeah.
4
He looked 2 or
maybe.
3, and we later learned, Daithi, that was because he'd been left in a cot all of his life.
Oh God.
Now, I know you hear that a lot, and sometimes it's exaggerated, but in this case, and in a lot of the children's cases in the orphanage, he'd been left in a cot for 6 years, so his limbs hadn't grown, he hadn't developed. And I'll always remember one of the first things we noticed about him was you could hear this constant grinding noise, and that was him grinding his teeth together. All these little quirks and habits out of boredom, frustration.
What were you thinking as a 12-year-old boy? Your mom comes to you one day, actually there's a new member of the family coming. He's coming from Belarus, a place that you probably didn't hear of before, and then he's 7 or 8, but he looks like a 4-year-old.
I think for myself and my brother and sister, we were, first of all, there was a sense of wonderment. You know, to have this, we didn't have any experience of a boy with special needs before. So having him in the house, we were trying to figure him out, he was trying to figure us out.
And we're looking at him here, Colm. He's on the floor, like going around like that. Was he actually 7 there?
No, this is...
He's younger.
He was 7, yeah, here, 6 or 7, yeah. 6 or 7 years of age.
But when you say he had special needs, he only had special needs because he only had special needs because of his environment and his upbringing, really. It is just that he actually had these special needs because he was confined to a cot and in an institution.
Yeah, and see, that's a thing that's very hard to link. And as part of the documentary, I go to Chernobyl to try and find out, because a lot of the kids, their disabilities, the government in Belarus, maybe so they don't have to take responsibility of looking after them, say, look, it's nothing we can do, it's the lasting legacy of Chernobyl. Whereas a lot of it is, hang on, it's not Chernobyl, it was then, but now it's because you leave them in cots, you don't diagnose them, and they don't get any treatments or facilities. I mean, that's probably one of the main reasons.
So he came to you anyway, and he stayed for a longer period then afterwards?
He was with us for a year and a half because we decided, it's hard to explain, but I'm sure you can imagine, he had just fitted into the family.
Of course he did.
Straight away. He was a little brother to me, and he was a son to my parents. And it was never really a big question. It was always going to be obvious that Banni was there to stay for good.
It was a natural thing for you.
Totally natural.
Yeah. So he's kind of brought back to Belarus then for a checkup, and your mum went with him, is that correct?
Yeah, we went through the adoption process and we were cleared on the Irish and Belarusian side. And then after a year and a half of him being enrolled in school, we had him baptised in the parish, he had friends, and when he first arrived, he wouldn't move. But then he began to walk, and towards the end, my mum got a call one day and they said he has to come back for some checks.
And
for
she
1
said
month.
she should do it because...
Yeah, well, we didn't really have a choice, first of all. And I think she was suspicious and she went with him. She couldn't bear the thought of him
He
going
was like
back
her son.
Yeah, of
to the
course,
orphanage. Yeah, there she is with my dad, Tom. And she went back with him, but then very quickly it became apparent that he was back to stay in Belarus.
What happened when she went? Did they just keep him and said, we're not letting him go, or what happened?
It's very hard to understand how they do business over there. I mean, Belarus is a country, an old Soviet bloc country. The guy who's in charge has been the president for 22 years. There's still such paranoia and suspicion. It's the old Soviet mentality of we are the mother race. I think it was said to my mother, we can't understand why you would want this handicapped child.
I know, we heard her say that in the
Yeah,
police.
you've three healthy children. Why do you want this child? And they couldn't get their head around that. And that with pride, with red tape, it didn't
I
happen.
can only imagine what your mother felt like when she had to leave Banni over there.
Yeah, I can't imagine it because, you know, I was 12 at the time. We were sheltered from it to a certain extent because you're going through school, you have a million different things in your mind.
I know.
I can't imagine what it was like for my parents. Much more difficult than it was for us. When you're 12, you have a great ability to bounce back, and you couldn't really comprehend what was going on. You know, I was thinking, but hang on, he doesn't have parents. We will give him a family.
Yeah.
What's the
You
problem?
were thinking obvious and how it should be really in the world, really, in the sense of
Exactly.
he doesn't have parents, nobody wants him, we'll keep him, goodbye.
He's one of us, yeah.
Didn't understand it when I was 12. I'm 28 now, and I still don't understand it.
So in the interim period then of when your mother came back and all that, did she still harbour hopes? Did your family still harbour hopes of getting him back?
Yeah, they kept the fight up for as long as they could through the charity, and also they hired a lawyer over in Belarus. You know, they put a lot of time into it.
Of course, and money, of course.
And money and everything, and it's just, again, they were coming up against the block, the
It wasn't gonna
system.
happen, yeah.
It wasn't going to happen. And I think it was said to them eventually, look, give up, guys, it's not happening.
Yeah. So you were chatting to a producer then one day and you said, hey, this came up in conversation, was it?
Yeah, you know yourself, we were having a chat over lunch about the 30th anniversary of Chernobyl, and I'm hugely interested in what happened at Chernobyl anyway. And we were talking about ways we could cover it. And then I started telling them about my story. So like you are, they were asking me, what about his parents? What about the reasons it was blocked? And most importantly, where is Banni now?
Yeah.
And I didn't know the answer to any of them.
So when you went back, what did you find?
I found Banni still back in the orphanage. I wish I could say he was in a good place and he was looking well. I mean, how good would it be for me to be able to come back and say to my parents, well, look, it's so sad it didn't work out for us, but look at Banni now, he's happy. That wasn't how he was when I found him. And then trying to get answers.
What age is he now, Colm?
He's 21. He doesn't look 21, but he's sitting there in a room packed with other children. None of them are treated for the different disabilities they have, and they're just left there, and that's where they'll be left.
Colm, that's such a sad story.
Now, I think, you know, is there a silver lining to the cloud? I hope so, because if you look at the orphanage now in the documentary tonight, and I compare it with footage of how it was 10, 20 years ago, there is no comparison. And it is only because of Irish volunteers. It's amazing when you go to these places, the Belarusian people, they don't really care about people who have special needs. They're just way down in the pecking order when it comes to their society.
Or some of them, yeah, I'm sure.
It's the Irish people who have been coming in doing the big
years.
changes.
Yeah,
Well, we're going to
Erosion, all
see
the
the
guys, yeah.
story
And Brother
tonight.
Liam Maura, who we went over
Brother
with.
Liam
Yeah.
Maura, of course, as well, and Claire.
9:30 tonight, RTÉ2.
9:30 tonight,
We'll be
RTÉ2. It's
watching.
called Finding Banni.
And thank you for
Thank you,
doing
Colm.
it.
No, and listen, thank you so much for having me on, guys. I know it's not the normal
I
kind of
think,
thing we do here,
but I
but
think it's
No,
I think it's
a very
I
important
think it's a
story.
sad story, but you know,
you know what? I hope it's one that resonates with people
Yeah,
because there's
it
so
will.
many people watching this now who have taken in these children
Yeah.
and it might strike a chord with them.
Colm, thank you so much.